Hey, 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 what do you say? Guess who it is? It's me, today. The reason why that I threw out so many blogs so fast is because the people helping me to set this up told me that you needed to do that, and rather than wait a few days in between each blog just to see if you could pick up people who are interested enough to care to even, subscribe and to actually watch them. So that's why I did it. I'm enjoying it anyway. I hope you are. Funny thing is that it's just difficult than you actually think it is. I wanted to start out with, going back to my childhood. And I want to tell you why I'm doing this. My kids, they don't know anything about my childhood at all. No, they don't know anything about me. It's kind of strange, but do your kids know anything about you? When's the last time you told them about anything that went on at 8 years old? Probably never, huh? I don't even know if our wives and husbands know anything about us, really. But I thought, I'm going to leave something. I thought I would do this so that people would understand. Because, I went to a lot of funerals in my life, and one of the things I realized, I didn't know these people at all. And yet they were closest people to me that, I don't go to funerals if there ain't people I really liked. Because, well, who am I joking? I'm kidding. So I actually started thinking about it, and, maybe you should. That, are we leaving anything, or do we take everything? And I wanted to leave something, so I'm doing this. Plus, I wanted a lot of friends, and plus I wanted to be successful at one more thing in my life, and a YouTube blogger who could add on to me being successful in the band, and and having a great family. So, speaking of a great family, I was down there where I lived as a child with a lot of cousins, great cousins, Mosers and Kerfmans and Sartwells, and I think Sartwells. I remember the name anyway. Maybe there was people that were down there that, other than just, I think that was my cousin's dad's name. But there were a lot of great cousins. I was the oldest of all the grandkids, and so that means that, I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but it's supposed to mean that you're oldest of all the grandkids. All right, so, but we had a lot of things that we did. One of the things that my cousin lived right next to the creek where I told you we fished, but that was a reason for me to jump on my bike at the age of 8 or 9 and 10 years old and run down there and fish. I loved it. It was my life. I thought it was great. How many kids do that nowadays? Probably parents probably can't let them because of the way the world turned out. You can't trust anybody, but that's neither here nor there. That was what we did in those days, and we used to. My grandmother was a beautiful, beautiful person because she took care of us after my dad died, and Mom and us kids lived upstairs over her restaurant. Well, it was more than a restaurant. It was like a nightclub. Had a monstrous dance floor and a great big dining room. Actually, 2 dining rooms that I remember, and the whole bar area and the eating area. And she had all kinds of great musicians there. She had Johnny Cash there, and she had some other people. And I think that's when I started really liking music, probably back about 8 years old, because I got to see some of those bands, and I really liked the fact that they were able to have the people watching them, and it was kind of a cool thing to have people that looked up to you because you were the ones on the stage. And to this day, it's the same thing. There's always lots of people in the audience who wish they were musicians, and I always tell people to try, go for it. And there's so many open mics and things, and after you've practiced for a while, just go down and do it and jump to the next level. Write some own songs of your own. Put them on YouTube. Do what you want. But the reality of it is, go for it. That's what channel is all about. Just going for it, because too many people don't. They don't. But anyway, we used to have this thing called a coon chase, which is really cool. I mean, it was a Graham put them on all the time, and people came from all over the country, and there were so many people camping there, and they shed this big parking lot, and what happens is they get on a bus with their dogs and coon dogs, and then they go far away, and in the morning somebody came and walked that whole distance with a coon pelt, I guess they called it, and then when they got back around behind Graham's restaurant, there was a big tree, and then they smacked the pelt. And then up in the tree was a cage with a coon in it, and far out of reach, but up in the tree. And what would happen is that these guys would get off the bus, and they just they'd show their dogs the scent, and then they just let them go, and they'd jump on back on the bus and go all the way back to Graham's. And that was running through woods and creeks, and really amazing. I mean, long distance these dogs would come, and then 15 minutes later or so, you'd hear the dogs coming, and I remembered that. It was great. I used to sit on the picnic table and watch all this, and then my mom said we could eat anything we wanted at these, and my grandmother put on an amazing spread. Seafood, mostly. Clams and shrimp and bacon. What do they call them? Potatoes and all kinds of sweet corn and all kinds of meat, and I loved it. I loved it. To this day, I love buffets. I love going to places like Golden Corral, and I loved Ponderosa and those kind of places. They're my kind of places. And now you got to, now you got to go to casinos to see that kind of stuff. But I know once in a while I still do. I love it. So anyway, then the dogs would come and they would jump up at the tree, and the one that jumped the highest in the air, or the one that made the first bark and all this stuff, won, and they got trophies and money, and it was a big deal. I mean, I've met people that literally were driving around with Cadillacs with trailers on them, and they had 2 coon dogs, and this was their life. This is what they did, travel all over the country, and who does that now? I mean, I don't even know if my kids even knew it ever existed or what it was, but it was cool. It was really cool. I liked it a lot, and it was part of my life as a kid. And there was other things too, the music. There were always bands, and I would sneak down, because Mom was the waitress, and I would sneak down there and I would go into the dining room, and everybody in the dining room that was the waitresses and stuff. They knew I was there hiding, and I'd watch the bands, and and like I said, I seen some pretty good bands. You guys didn't. I did. And then, let me tell you why we moved. Closed the restaurant, sold it, and left. Halloween night, I was probably about 9, maybe. And we knew there was a farm down the road, and he had these pumpkins, a lot of pumpkins, like they do nowadays at farms. And so me and a couple other 9 or 8, 9-year-olds decided we were going to get some pumpkins, and we were going to eat them, because we remember unless we were doing the coon chases and the big spreads of food, we didn't eat very well. So the reality is, Mom did everything she could. I love her. She was the best mom I've ever witnessed, and she took care of me, and she did a good job for me and my brothers and sisters. So, we thought we were doing a big deal by getting these pumpkins for Mom to cook. And it's raining really bad, and it's really dark. And while we're reaching down in the mud to get the pumpkins, the light comes on the back porch, and somebody yells, "Get away from my pumpkins!" And all of a sudden, there's this big bang, and the mud flew up next to the pumpkins, and somebody shot at us, and another shotgun, boom. Well, obviously, we didn't worry about the pumpkins. We were running as fast as we could go. We ran out of there and ran all the way home. And the next day, it was all over about some old man that's shooting at kids in the backyard. And, I don't know if they ever did anything to him at all. It probably didn't back in those days. But a couple days later, Mom came to us and put us around a table, and Grandma sat down with us and said, "We're moving. We're leaving. If we don't, you guys are going to end up in jail or dead." And, we did. We packed up and we left. And that's another story. But that's what happened. A couple things I wanted to leave you with here. I also love going down to the creek, the bigger creeks that were, I don't remember what they were called, but my life was part of going down to the river and watching the big boats go by. I love that. And that's a big area. They used to have these big barges and yachts and all this stuff. And I always said to myself, sat on that bank with me and the kids and my brothers and sisters or my friends, and I'd say, I'm going to have one of them big boats someday. And they'd all look at me and say, yeah, right. Well, hey, I did. And so I went for it. I go for it, you know. And there was another place there that was really cool called Whiskey Hollow, which was very mysterious as you're a child and very romantic as you got older, because I went back when I had my driver's license at 16, 17 with my girlfriend, and actually we went there. It was really cool. And they had this water spout. It was the nicest, coldest, most refreshing water you could get, and everybody goes up there with the jugs and gets it. And you see, how many people knew that? I mean, you know, I wanted to tell people that. Well, a little philosophy, and then we'll go out of here. I don't like to make these too long, but, you know, it's all for the best. We're going to talk a little bit about ruts. The difference between a rut and a grave is just that you basically went back and forth so long in one spot and never achieved what you wanted to achieve and never got farther forward in life than where you are. And eventually, that rut is so deep, it becomes a grave, and it's very hard to get out of a grave. So kind of remember that. Just, you know, like I've talked about before, put one foot in front of the other like they taught me in the military. And look, that's another video, but I got to tell you, I got out of some bad scrapes by just putting one foot in front of the other in Vietnam. And the last thing I'd like to leave you with is don't be afraid to tell people you love them, if they're your friends or your relatives or even your family. There's so many families that don't even talk to each other anymore. And I always say, you know, I love you to the people I really like that I'm on the phone with a lot. When I say, okay, see you later, love, and I never ever say goodbye. I'll tell you that story some other time about what happened when I said goodbye and it wasn't good. But right now, just leave me with this. Go for it. And always say, I love you to your spouse before you hang up on the phone. All right, people. Subscribe. Put the thing up. Send me some comments. Because I love you. See ya.